Today is February 11th, year 2019, and this is Mijanur Rahman. Like I mentioned before in my previous video, time flies. So this is the second series of the Financial Planning Tacit Knowledge Series. It's mostly for the mid-sized corporation to large size or the publicly traded corporations. Now, one of the aspects that we would deal with that is that or probably anyone would, any planning side would deal with it, is that how to address the uncertain risk, various risk, right? So now before we get to that, I wanted to bring something to your attention. Now before we get to that, addressing the systematic and unsystematic risk of large corporations or publicly traded corporations, that is either global or multinational. Now, you all know the definition of global and multinational. Now, very soon, we would have a different financing scope mechanism in place for corporations. But before we get there, in my last video of the second series, I mentioned is that whether a business can survive without foreseeing hundreds of years or upcoming years or next century. Now some of you might disagree. There might be timing could be an issue, whether the consumers are ready. But beware of that. Technology can change anything, and pretty much almost everything. Obviously, social marketing or social media is not the supreme technology. It's just a very I wouldn't say insignificant, but very a small part of the technology. Now, the destructive part of this technology could wipe out the social, what we have today. There might be always something new, and they should always be ready for that. So, if something, I wouldn't name any particular social media, but you could think of, for example, the telecommunication was part of destructive technology. This landline, we still use landline. We still use. There might be use for it, but the cellular telecommunication took over, and soon there'll be something else that will take over. But if these are destructive. We have computers, and the computers are super. Now. Many of you remember the size of computer was probably the size of a room, but today the computer is very available in your hand. It's very close. Even it can be as small as it could fit into anything, pretty much. A simple device, even naming your cell phone would be too big. So anything that is destructive also brings an opportunity to the society, to the human, just for our survivability, to survive. Now, I was running into a discussion on the other day with someone. The fact is that how would someone would invest in destructive technology, or where to invest money in, where, and how do we determine how should we invest? A large corporation or institutional investors should invest their money. Now, I will produce a video for that, a video series for that, a video for that. But before we get there, I wanted to address something. Before any corporation implements anything, they should really run through the checklist. And a checklist, is first, the first information should be whether the information they collected is sufficient, and then whether it's reliable. And with the relevance to that, the relevance and the reliability. So whichever you feel the appropriate in order. But I would go with the relevance and reliability. So that once we know that the information we collected or the data that we have to make a wise decision whether this corporation can serve today, tomorrow, and continue to serve to these generations after generations, century after century. And to do that, government will be one of the best example for that. The government don't really, of course, you will see a lot of government nowadays. They're very successful because of that. They actually, they have their research and development. They invest a lot of money towards the research and development, like the many other corporations. Often, militaries, they outsource their research and development to corporations, giant corporations, multinational or global corporations. Now, obviously, this is important for us to know, because if we don't have enough information, if we can't make an educated guess what is going to happen tomorrow, whether there's a going concern, whether we'll survive, whether the corporation will survive, and what is our next destination? Where are we going to go? From today to tomorrow. From tomorrow to where? So, knowing all those things, there are so many unknown parameters, but we know a few things for sure. We know there's a time. The time is always an essence. The time is always a component to every equation. Right? So we know that for certain. Everything else. So if we put the time on a fixed horizon, right, on a horizontal axis, and place all those variables that you can think of, but obviously you can actually develop a program for that, depending on which business, what kind of business you're in. So let's say, for example, you're into an investment business and you want to assure whether the product will survive or whether the product will be successful. You can certainly find out by using the past experience, the timing, the time component, the time variable. I was actually working on a theory on the product development while I was actually in January, actually in November 2015, actually earlier, between September to June to November 2015, I was working on some theories prior to that as well. But anyway, let's not get to that discussion. We'll talk about it another time. So the concept here is that we want to ensure that before we invest, we can understand whether the corporation will survive, whether there's a going concern, whether there is a liquidity, whether there's a profitability, whether there's a market and needs for it, right? So obviously, if we don't have any of those, if there's an issue with the going concern, then why bother investing? And again, an institutional investor might think by looking at it, a going concern, buy them at a cheaper cost, right? So these are the decision making. Buying at a liquidation value often could bring a large chunk. So often you'd see, this is one of my concepts earlier in my career, in my business career, I noticed some things that they often, it is a good idea to take advantage of something that is really, really reasonably priced, right? When I say reasonably, I mean liquidated value. So often you could buy liquidated investments at a really low price, but you would have to do your homework, whether that investment will survive and provide you sufficient return. Now, these are something that you'd have your team for, an educated team for it. The team would have a programmer, designers, engineers, any professionals, accountant, financial guys, financial analyst, the quantitative analyst. What else? Financial planner, lawyer, the different kind of lawyers, right? So corporate lawyers, criminal lawyers, civil lawyers, you could name it. These are all related. A large corporation can never survive without having sufficient professionals on board, right? So these are the decision-making privilege. So what's today is already past. Like I said before in my previous video, what is tomorrow is already here. So you're really making a decision for tomorrow. And we want to make sure the decision is proper, accurate, and significant, right? And to do that, we need to ensure that we have sufficient knowledge about the product that we're investing into, and as a retail, as a consumer side, from a consumer perspective, and from a corporation perspective, the investment that where we're investing our money to, we want to make sure that it has significant amount of return, so that there is, or at least there are, we don't fall below the required return for that particular investment or asset, right? So this is something that obviously I wouldn't talk about the basic finance courses, right? Which you can probably learn from your financial courses. The internal rate of return, and then external return. What else? The required return. So many return that you could that probably the investment return that you require to sustain a project. And also you'd have to find out your internal growth and the external growth. These are very basic financial, and then later on you probably learn portfolio and so forth, and the global, how the global financial works, which we'll talk about it. Is that this is the idea? Talk about the global aspect of it, and that's why I'm actually giving you all those nitty-gritty, all those very small details, but these are actually small things, but that makes a big difference when it comes to global, the financial global aspect, right? Because we are not really, any decision we make today has the significant impact on any part of the world, right? End users, like I said, and end users could be sitting on the edge of this earth, of the planet, right? And they could suffer or they could benefit from that. So we really have to be very, very careful. And to do that, to survive that decision, we need to make sure that the decision we make, we collect sufficient information prior to invest, prior to do anything, right? So prior to investing, we want to learn about that particular investment product. What are you about to launch? But anyway, today my time is very limited, but I am going to produce that video series as I'm ready now. I should be, but again, as you know, most of the times I don't have I speak often. I prepare notes, but often I don't use them. I speak from my knowledge. And I think it's a pretty good idea going forward to, I'm going to prepare notes while I'm speaking, so this way I could speak point by point, than going on a very broad basis. So this will probably help you, but this is still a very beginning, the brainstorming of the second series of the Financial Planning Tacit Knowledge Series, for the knowledge series, for the financial planning for the corporations when it comes to corporations, publicly traded corporations or mid-sized to publicly traded corporations. But there each area that I'm going to take up probably each point by point, and then one of the aspects that I would probably discuss is that the going public is that the financing a corporation, why is it so important? That would be one of my main aspects for this discussion: financing a corporation, keeping the corporation at tax, at an equilibrium level where you could grow. We could grow a company at an optimal level. But anyway, so let's not get into a discussion any further than this today. So I'm going to conclude this discussion today. I'm not sure I'm going to publish this video or not, but this is still a brainstorming for me. But like I said, today is February 11th, year 2019, and this is Mijanur Rahman. And oh, by the way, thank you for reading my first book, Financial Freedom: A Fictional Financial Plan. And as I promised, the second book, for various reasons, I wasn't quite able to publish this second financial book. Again, I wanted to thank you for listening.